Hey, what's up guys, GK here. So in this video, we're going to talk about a new service that Google has launched recently, which is called API Gateway. And by the way, AWS also has the same name and they have a same service called API Gateway. So if you're updating your resume, you just have to update once for both Google and AWS. So when you create a cloud function, you get an HTTP endpoint already. So why do we need an API Gateway? So this is where I think we should understand the use case that the problem that Google is trying to solve. In general, it applies for even any other API gateways. So in the microservice architecture, you will have multiple services. For instance, you have multiple cloud functions. So let's say as a provider, you do not want to give your consumers like 5-6 multiple endpoints, each one for each service. So ideally what you want to do is you want to give one endpoint, one API endpoint, and then based on the context paths, a consumer would go to the specific service. For example, if you have one endpoint which is api.com/hello, that would talk to the hello cloud function, and if it is /gk, it would talk to my GK microservice, or if it is /something else, it would talk to something else. So that's one advantage. You have one API endpoint and then you have multiple cloud functions running behind as the backends. You cannot do that with a standard default cloud function HTTP endpoint. So there are other advantages as well. For example, you can limit the number of requests to your backends, but one important advantage which I'm going to demo in this video is you can secure your cloud function using API key. Now for instance, now by default, whenever you make your cloud function as an unauthenticated, anybody can hit the cloud function using the HTTP endpoint, but using API gateway, when you give API gateway or an API endpoint to the customer or to the consumer or even to your other service, we can secure that by using API key. So we're going to see in this demo, we're going to create our first API gateway endpoint, and we're going to use the cloud function as an example, and we're also going to secure our cloud function using the API key. So with that, let's go into the demo. All right guys, so before we start with the demo, one thing you all want to note is that this service API gateway is in a beta offering right now. So they have a good document on how to install API gateway using gcloud and as well as console. So there are a few mistakes in this document, which if you follow my video, you're going to avoid those mistakes, and follow till the end because I'm going to give you an assignment in the end. So there are 3 steps basically in this whole tutorial. So first step is creating the API. Second is creating the API config, which is also called as the Swagger doc configuration. And the third step is creating the gateway. So these 3 are the steps. I'm going to provide the timelines in the description. You can follow based on the timelines. If you have any issues, you can go back and forth. So now we're going to follow the gcloud command line document, because when I was trying with the UI, I was facing some issues with the UI. So I also recommend you guys to follow the command line for now. So first things first, if you haven't installed SDK, I highly recommend installing that on your computer. So after you install the SDK, run gcloud components update, because this step will make sure that any API gateway services or any new services as part of the beta, if you do not have, it will download and install and update the components. So once this is done, the next thing that you want to do, set the project, gcloud config set project, and the project ID which you can get from the console. So go to the console and copy the project ID and paste it here. Once that is done, you can check by doing config list. You would get all the configurations that you have currently set for this shell. The next step is to enable the services. So these are the 3 services that you have to enable: API gateway, service management, and these 3. So the command is gcloud services enabled API gateway. So copy these 3 commands from the document. I'm going to paste this in the description. So once this is done, the next thing what I would recommend you all to do is go to your console and go to cloud functions. So click on create function. If you do not already have a function, click on create function and select the function name here as hello, or if you want to have anything, you can have it anything, but make sure that in the authentication section have it as unauthenticated invocations. So we don't require any authentication for this tutorial. Click on save and go to next. In the next, I'm going to use Python 3.7, and for hello world I'm going to call it as hello cloud advocates. Deploy. Okay, so while this is happening, what we can do is we can go to the service account section. So we have to create a service account for this tutorial. Go to the service accounts, and here create a service account and give it any name, but I'm going to show you what I have done. So this is the service account that I'm using here. If you are not aware of creation of service account, please do watch my previous tutorial on this. But basically the permissions that I gave for this are important, so I'm going to show you that. So the permissions that I gave API gateway admin, so give the same permission for the service account that you have created and save that information somewhere in your notepad or somewhere. All right, so now we have a service account. I'm also going to check the Cloud Function status. Perfect. So we do have Cloud Function as well, and you have the HTTP endpoint. So if I do click on that, you're going to get hello Cloud Advocates. So now obviously this is what we're going to secure through our API gateway, using the API key and stuff. So moving on, so next thing that we want to do is we want to create an API. So I've copied all my comments in a code, tool, but if you can also copy it from here, you don't have to remember these comments. So this is the command that is used to create. So basically gcloud beta, and if you're not aware of the gcloud, why we have to use beta, again watch my previous tutorial on gcloud. But since this is a beta service, we're going to use beta, and then API gateway APIs is a service name, and create my API is the API name that we're going to create, and project is in which project. So basically we're going to use the project YouTube. All right, so the API is created successfully, and if I go back to the console and refresh the screen, you would see the update is gone and you have the new API. So the next command is describe, to just to see from the gcloud interface whether it is successfully done, or you want to see how the API is and stuff. So you can see it as an active, and this is something that you want to make sure, if you do not have a console, because from the console you can see it's already active, but if you do not have that, this is a command to describe and see the whole information here. So moving on, the next command is to create the API config. This is OpenAPI configuration or Swagger doc, and this is where you're going to specify everything about your API. Now I have already created the OpenAPI spec, again copied from the documentation, but modified it basically based on the Cloud Functions that we have created. So I'm going to quickly go over the documentation here. All right, so here we have Swagger 2.0, and the title is my API, and you can give any description that you want. So schemes is HTTPS, and the produce is produces application JSON, which is in a JSON output. And then the path here is important because once you hit the API /hello, it's going to hit the backend. The backend is the Cloud Function here. And previously when I was practicing for this demo, I gave hello world, but for right now the Cloud Functions endpoint is hello. And if you have any doubts on that, go back to your Cloud Function and look out for the trigger type in the trigger section. What is the backend here? What is the URL here? So once you have that, come back and make sure this address is proper. And the responses, obviously whenever you get a proper response, it's going to be 200. and the description, you can give the description here. So once this is done, so this is the config document that we're talking about, this Swagger doc. So this is the second step to create the config. And if you have, let's say, another backend, and this is what I want to give you as an assignment. If you have another backend cloud function which is in a microservice, running some other service, then you can create another path here saying /books or something and put the cloud function in there. And please do take this as an assignment and let me know in the comment section how it went for you. So you will have 2 backends and 2 different cloud functions as an assignment. All right, now once you create the config file, save it in a YAML file, .yaml, because that config file has to be in YAML. And the command is to create a configuration. My config is the name which I gave, but again, feel free to change it the way you want it to look. And the project is the right project that we're currently using. The backend is the service account that we have created before. Now again, if you have any questions on that, go back to your service accounts page and look for the service account that you have created from the console. So copy this whole command and paste it here. All right, so now we have the configuration created. Again, you can go back to the console and look for the configuration here. So click on the API. You can see the config file, and you can also look for the config file and the details of the config file here. Perfect. Now the next command is to describe the config file. I'm going to skip this command because we have looked from the UI, the configuration looks good. So here I'm going to do services enable API gateway. So this command is important, and I'm going to show you the issue that they have specified in the document about this command. So if you go back to the document and if you see enabling the service, enable, they have specified here as an API ID, which is your ID, but actually what you have to do is you have to give the whole service name for it to work. So for example, if you see here, this is the managed service. So always copy this managed service. This is a unique managed service along with the my API ID that you gave. So copy this and paste it here in the actual command. And now copy the whole command and give it here. So here what we're trying to do is we're trying to enable our managed service that we have created, which is my API and this one. You can also see this service from the console, by the way. So if you go to managed services, let me show you that real quick. The services, yeah, go to the APIs and services, and here click on library, and if you type this command here, which is my API, you would see the service that we have created. You just have to click on manage, and if it is disabled, you have to click on enable, but right now it is enabled, which is what this gcloud command was doing previously. Okay, so the next command after we have done this is to create the gateway. So this is the third and final step that we have to do, and copy the whole command and make sure the configuration is right and the API is correct. So it is my API and the config is my config. Copy this and paste it here. Oops, sorry. Copy this again. It's going to take again some time. I'm going to pause this video. Alright, so previously when I ran the command, it threw some weird error. So what I've done was I've changed the name to my API gateway and reran this command. So let me update it here. It's going to be my API gateway now. Okay, so I'm gonna do a quick describe of this my API gateway, and I'm going to show you the endpoint that we're going to get with this. So as you can see here, the host name is myAPIGateway.dev. So what should happen is when I do curl on that with the context path as hello. All right, now if I do curl, you see that I'm getting output as hello cloud advocates. Oh, sorry. So this is the output that we're getting, and this is working. So basically now my API gateway, my API is pointing to the cloud function, which is the hello cloud advocates. As you can see here, when I hit the cloud function HTTP endpoint, I'm getting the same output. So this is now completed. So this tutorial is done, but the next and most important thing that we're going to do is securing this cloud function. So for that, it's a very simple tutorial. Again, what all we have to do is we have to update the configuration file and redeploy the configuration file. So let me show you that real quick. So what we're going to do is have already created that file. I'm calling it as v2.yaml, and here what we have here is the extra field security and API key and responses as 200. That's all same, and again the API key type, API key, and the key. That's it. So copy this, have it a different configuration file, and also make sure that the cloud function path is correct here, and save this file. Now we have two Swagger configuration files. One is the previous file which is without the key, and the right one is now, which is v2, sorry, which has the key. The next thing that we have to do right now is we have to create a new configuration file, right? So for that, the command which I'm going to give here is the same command that we used before, but slightly different in the sense, like I'm going to create a new config name because we already have my config. So I'm going to call it as a my config key. Okay, so the config file is created, and you can also go back to the UI and see, but the thing that we have to do right now is update the config file. So we have to point the API gateway to talk to the new config file which we have created, which is my config key. So that's what this step is going to do here. So now if I go back to the console, you can see that the API gateway is getting updated. And you should see it pointing to the new configuration file. And that step I do not see here in the UI. At least I do not see how to update the new configuration file from the UI. So that's what I was talking about before, that the gcloud command has that. All right, so now we see that the configuration file is updated, meaning the API gateway, the gateways, which is our API gateway, is talking to the new config key. So to test it out, so what we're going to do is we're going to do a curl, which we have done before. Sorry, curl, and then try this. So now you should see that it would not allow unauthenticated method unless you pass the key, right? So what we have to do for that is go back to the console and go to the credentials, And there are keys here which I have used before. And if you do not have a key, create a credential, create API key. That's it. That's all you have to do. And you can use any of these keys, and you can restrict the keys that I'm going to discuss how to restrict and do all those things in maybe in future video. But for now, once you have the key, copy the key. And if you don't know where to create the key, it's quite easy. You just have to go to API keys, APIs and services, and go to the credential section and create a credential here, and click on API key, curl, and here key. And if you have any questions on that, go to the last part of this tutorial and you would see key has to be given is equal to, and that's it. So now with the key, you're going to get the output. So this is how you can secure your cloud function using API gateway. So I think I have covered good amount of topics with respect to API gateway, and it should help you to get started. So like I've said, try to take up my assignment and create multiple context paths, and try to give like /hello and /other stuff, and let me know in the comment section how it went. And if you have any questions with respect to it, let me know in the comment section. If you like this video, give it a like and share it with your friends, and do subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm going to come up with more such tutorials in future. Thanks.